Slide 1. Introduction to Clean Water and Sanitation, Achieving SDG 6 Globally and in India. The pursuit of Sustainable Development Goal 6, SDG 6, represents a critical endeavor to secure one of humanity's most fundamental human rights, access to safely managed water and sanitation services. This goal transcends mere infrastructure development, encompassing the broader imperative of sustainable resource management to ensure equity for both present and future generations. Hello and welcome again. This is your host Harshit Simha. In the current presentation highlight the significance of SDG 6 is profoundly interlinked with other sustainable development objectives, acting as a cornerstone for public health, poverty reduction, gender equality, and economic productivity. Globally, the journey towards achieving universal access by 2030 is marked by considerable challenges. Despite progress, billions remain without safe drinking water and basic sanitation, with disparities acutely pronounced in sub-Saharan Africa and parts of Asia. These challenges are exacerbated by climate change, water scarcity, pollution, and rapid urbanization, demanding innovative and resilient management strategies. India's experience presents a microcosm of both the immense scale of the challenge and the potential for transformative achievement. Home to a significant portion of the world's population, the country has launched ambitious national missions, such as the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Clean India mission, which made substantial strides in improving sanitation coverage and ending open defecation. However, the work is far from complete. The focus must now shift from access to functionality, sustainability, and quality, addressing issues of water stress, wastewater treatment, and the maintenance of behavioral change. The path forward necessitates continued robust governance, increased investment, community-led approaches, and the integration of cutting-edge technology to ensure that the vision of SDG 6 becomes an equitable and enduring reality. Slide 2. Understanding SDG 6, Clean Water and Sanitation. Sustainable Development Goal 6, SDG 6, Clean Water and Sanitation, is a cornerstone of the 2030 Agenda, recognizing water as both a fundamental human right and a catalyst for sustainable development. It aspires to guarantee universal access to safe and affordable drinking water, equitable sanitation, and effective hygiene services, thereby eradicating practices such as open defecation that perpetuate poverty and disease. A critical pillar of SDG 6 is the assurance of access to safe water. This involves expanding infrastructure and investing in affordable technologies to ensure that all communities, regardless of geography or income, can secure clean drinking water. Equally vital is adequate sanitation, which emphasizes inclusivity and equity, ensuring that sanitation services extend to marginalized groups while promoting hygiene practices essential for public health. Another indispensable dimension is water quality, which necessitates curbing pollution, treating wastewater, and increasing safe water reuse. By tackling contaminants from domestic, industrial, and agricultural sources, the goal safeguards ecosystems while protecting human health. Complementing this is integrated water management, which advocates for governance structures that harmonize competing demands across agriculture, industry, and domestic use, while preserving transboundary cooperation and ecosystem integrity. The importance of SDG 6 transcends health outcomes. It underpins economic productivity, social equity, and environmental resilience. Without reliable water and sanitation, progress on other sustainable development goals, including poverty reduction, education, and climate adaptation, remains compromised. Yet, global progress is uneven. Billions still lack access to safely managed water and sanitation services, and wastewater treatment remains inadequate in many regions. In essence, SDG 6 demands urgent collective action. Governments, private actors, and civil society must accelerate investments, embrace innovative technologies, and foster inclusive governance. Only through such concerted efforts can the global community secure water and sanitation for all, ensuring dignity, health, and sustainability for present and future generations. Slide 3. Why clean water and sanitation matter? Clean water and adequate sanitation are not merely developmental aspirations, they are intrinsic to human survival, dignity, and sustainable progress. The absence of safe water and sanitation infrastructure perpetuates cycles of disease, poverty, and inequality, while their presence lays the foundation for healthier societies and resilient ecosystems. At the most fundamental level, life and health are safeguarded through access to uncontaminated water sources and hygienic sanitation systems. Preventing waterborne diseases such as cholera, dysentery, and typhoid not only saves millions of lives annually but also reduces the disproportionate burden of illness on vulnerable communities. Closely linked to health is human dignity, particularly for women and girls, who face risks to safety, privacy, and well-being in the absence of secure sanitation facilities. Access to proper sanitation strengthens gender equity and fosters social inclusion. The impact extends significantly to education. Reliable water and sanitation facilities in schools enhance attendance rates, especially among girls, who are otherwise disproportionately excluded. Clean facilities reduce dropout rates and contribute to an environment conducive to learning and development. Similarly, economic productivity is closely tied to water and sanitation. Communities with safe water experience reduced healthcare costs, fewer workdays lost to illness, and enhanced labor efficiency, thereby contributing directly to economic growth and stability. Beyond social and economic dimensions, environmental sustainability is also contingent on sound water management and sanitation systems. Protecting water resources from pollution, managing wastewater responsibly, and preserving aquatic ecosystems ensures the integrity of biodiversity and ecological balance, which in turn supports agriculture, climate resilience, and long-term human well-being. Slide 4. Global Water and Sanitation Crisis. The global water and sanitation crisis constitutes one of the most pressing challenges of the 21st century, with profound implications for health, equity, and sustainable development. Despite decades of international commitments, over 2 billion people continue to lack access to safely managed drinking water services, while approximately 3.6 billion people remain without access to safely managed sanitation facilities. This widespread deprivation underscores the structural inequalities that persist across regions and within populations. The human toll of inadequate water and sanitation is immense. Each year, an estimated 829,000 preventable deaths are directly attributable to unsafe water, insufficient sanitation, and poor hygiene practices. These deaths disproportionately affect children under 5, perpetuating cycles of vulnerability and poverty. Equally alarming is the fact that nearly 80% of wastewater globally returns to ecosystems untreated, contaminating rivers, lakes, and groundwater, thereby exacerbating health risks and undermining environmental resilience. While India has made substantial progress in providing basic water access, challenges remain in ensuring water quality and safely managed sanitation. Rural areas lag significantly behind urban centers, and water stress affects over 600 million Indians. A critical dimension of the crisis is the urban-rural divide. While urban areas tend to exhibit higher levels of sanitation coverage, rural populations remain disproportionately disadvantaged. Rural residents are up to twice as likely to practice open defecation and 3 times less likely to access safely managed sanitation services compared to their urban counterparts. This divide not only reflects infrastructural gaps but also highlights issues of governance, affordability, and social exclusion. The implications of this crisis extend beyond immediate health outcomes. Inadequate water and sanitation erode educational opportunities, particularly for girls, reduce workforce productivity through illness, and strain healthcare systems. Moreover, unchecked wastewater discharge poses existential threats to ecosystems and biodiversity, destabilizing the very foundations of sustainable development. Slide 5. Global Water Challenges. Regional Disparities. Water insecurity is a defining feature of global inequality, manifesting starkly in regional disparities that impede sustainable development and human well-being. While access to safe and affordable drinking water is recognized as a fundamental human right, millions across the globe remain excluded, particularly in low and middle-income regions where structural vulnerabilities persist. In sub-Saharan Africa, only about 1/3 of the population has access to safely managed drinking water, while 3/4 lack even basic hand-washing facilities. The burden of water collection falls disproportionately on women and girls, consuming valuable time that could otherwise be directed toward education and economic participation. For nearly 30% of households, journeys to collect water exceed 30 minutes, reinforcing cycles of gender inequality and social deprivation. The Middle East and North Africa, MENA, represent the most water-stressed region globally, with 17 countries falling below the water scarcity threshold. Wealthier states mitigate scarcity through energy-intensive desalination, yet this approach is unsustainable in the long term due to ecological and financial costs. Meanwhile, conflict-affected areas experience compounded vulnerabilities, damaged infrastructure, contamination of supplies, and limited institutional capacity to deliver safe water. These dynamics exacerbate humanitarian crises and intensify regional instability. In South and Southeast Asia, progress has been made in expanding water services, yet over 600 million people remain without access to safely managed drinking water. Rapid population growth, accelerating industrialization, and urban expansion exert immense stress on limited resources. Furthermore, the region is acutely vulnerable to climate change, with altered monsoon patterns, rising sea levels, and flooding threatening both water quality and availability. These pressures create a precarious balance between development aspirations and environmental sustainability. Slide 6. Water conflicts. Growing security threat. Water scarcity is no longer merely an environmental concern but a profound security challenge with global implications. Rising competition over diminishing freshwater resources has amplified tensions within and across national boundaries. Since 1980, water-related conflicts have surged by nearly 300%, with hotspots emerging in transboundary river basins such as the Nile, Mekong, and Indus. These conflicts are driven by the interplay of scarcity, political rivalry, and fragile governance mechanisms, threatening both regional stability and human security. Transboundary tensions are particularly acute where rivers and aquifers traverse multiple nations. Disputes over water allocation, infrastructure development, and ecological impacts often escalate into broader diplomatic and geopolitical confrontations. For example, India's concerns regarding China's upstream hydropower projects on the Brahmaputra and its long-standing contestations with Pakistan under the Indus Waters Treaty, recently cancelled, underscore the fragility of shared water governance frameworks. Water stress also exacerbates existing social and political grievances, fueling conflict escalation in fragile states. Moreover, migration pressures induced by water scarcity, whether from drought, desertification, or contamination, are displacing vulnerable populations. By 2050, it is projected that up to 700 million people could be uprooted due to water stress, creating new humanitarian crises and security risks. Ultimately, water has emerged as a critical axis of power, vulnerability, and conflict in the 21st century. Addressing these challenges requires strengthening transboundary cooperation, investing in resilient infrastructure, and embedding water diplomacy within broader frameworks of peace and security. Slide 7. Climate change, the water crisis multiplier. Climate change functions as a profound amplifier of global water challenges, transforming localized stresses into systemic crises. Water is the most immediate medium through which climate variability manifests, and shifts in precipitation patterns, temperature fluctuations, and extreme weather events have begun to drastically reshape the global hydrological cycle. This altered cycle intensifies both scarcity and abundance, producing a paradox of regions simultaneously confronting acute droughts and devastating floods. Prolonged droughts, exacerbated by rising global temperatures, are accelerating groundwater depletion and reducing river flows, undermining agricultural productivity and threatening potable water supplies. In parallel, the increased frequency of torrential rainfall and glacial melt is heightening risks of flash floods, erosion, and sedimentation, while sea level rise intrudes into freshwater aquifers, contaminating already limited reserves. Thus, climate change magnifies the unpredictability and inequity of water distribution, destabilizing human and ecological systems alike. At the geopolitical level, climate-induced water stress heightens the risk of disputes over transboundary rivers and aquifers, threatening regional stability. Addressing this reality necessitates integrative approaches, combining adaptive water governance, investment in resilient infrastructure, and climate-smart technologies. Emphasizing cooperation over competition, while embedding equity and sustainability at the core of policy responses, will be essential to mitigate the cascading risks posed by climate change as the ultimate water crisis multiplier. Slide 8. India's Water and Swachh Bharat Mission. Water and sanitation are fundamental pillars of human development, public health, and environmental sustainability. In India, where the challenges of water scarcity, uneven distribution, and inadequate sanitation infrastructure have long constrained social and economic progress, two flagship initiatives, the Jal Jeevan Mission (JJM) and the Swachh Bharat Mission (SBM), represent transformative policy interventions aimed at securing Sustainable Development Goal 6, clean water and sanitation. Launched in 2019, the Jal Jeevan Mission seeks to provide functional household tap connections, FHTCs, to every rural household by 2024. Moving beyond the traditional supply-driven paradigm, JJM adopts a demand-responsive, community-managed approach to ensure the long-term sustainability of water infrastructure. Its framework emphasizes source sustainability, water quality monitoring, greywater management, and active village-level participation through Pani Samitis. This decentralized governance model strengthens ownership and accountability while promoting gender inclusion by encouraging women's participation in decision-making processes. Importantly, JJM integrates technology-enabled solutions such as sensor-based IoT monitoring to enhance efficiency, transparency, and service delivery. By addressing both access and quality, the mission seeks to mitigate waterborne diseases, reduce drudgery for women and children, and foster equitable rural development. Complementing JJM, the Swachh Bharat Mission, launched in 2014, has been one of the world's largest sanitation drives, with its rural component, SBM Grameen, focused on eliminating open defecation through the construction of over 110 million household toilets. SBM has significantly improved sanitation coverage, fostered behavioral change through mass awareness campaigns, and promoted a culture of cleanliness and hygiene. Its urban counterpart, SBM Urban, continues to focus on solid waste management, wastewater treatment, and sustainable sanitation infrastructure. While the first phase achieved the milestone of making India open defecation-free (ODF), the second phase emphasizes ODF sustainability, effective waste management, and holistic sanitation practices. Together, JJM and SBM represent a synergistic approach to water and sanitation security. JJM addresses safe and reliable water supply, while SBM ensures improved sanitation infrastructure and hygiene practices. Their convergence has multiplier effects. Safe water supply reduces the contamination of sanitation facilities, and better sanitation prevents the pollution of drinking water sources. Moreover, both missions strengthen public health outcomes by reducing diarrheal diseases, malnutrition, and related socio-economic burdens. Progress of Jal Jeevan Mission in India. Jal Jeevan Mission has shown remarkable progress, increasing rural household tap water connections from 17% in 2019 to over 60% by 2023. The program faces challenges including funding constraints, infrastructure maintenance, and achieving coverage in difficult terrain and water-scarce regions. However, challenges remain in sustaining the gains achieved. Issues of groundwater depletion, uneven regional progress, urban-rural disparities, and the need for continuous behavioral change campaigns highlight the importance of long-term institutional support. Financial sustainability, capacity building, and adaptive governance mechanisms are critical to ensuring that infrastructure translates into enduring service. Slide 9. Sanitation challenges in India. Sanitation remains one of the most pressing developmental challenges in India, intricately linked to public health, social equity, and sustainable urbanization. Despite substantial investments through flagship initiatives such as the Swachh Bharat Mission, entrenched structural and behavioral barriers continue to impede universal sanitation coverage. A major challenge is usage and behavioral change. While toilet construction has expanded rapidly, actual utilization remains inconsistent due to generational habits, cultural practices, water scarcity, and inadequate maintenance. Empirical studies reveal that even in states with relatively high toilet coverage, between 20 to 40% of households continue to practice open defecation, underscoring the need for behavior-centric interventions rather than purely infrastructural expansion. Waste treatment infrastructure is another critical shortfall. Currently, only about 37% of India's sewage is treated before discharge, leading to widespread contamination of water bodies and posing grave environmental and health risks. Of over 4,000 cities and towns, barely one-fourth have partial sewerage systems, and fewer than 500 have operational sewage treatment plants, highlighting the stark urban-rural disparity and the urgent necessity of scaling decentralized treatment solutions. The persistence of manual scavenging epitomizes the human cost of inadequate sanitation technology. Despite legal prohibition, thousands remain engaged in hazardous practices of cleaning dry latrines and sewers, often resulting in preventable deaths and perpetuating cycles of caste-based exploitation. Between 2016 and 2020 alone, more than 340 fatalities were officially recorded from sewer cleaning, reflecting both technological gaps and systemic neglect. Finally, gender and social equity dimensions exacerbate sanitation challenges. Women and girls face disproportionate barriers, including safety risks, privacy concerns, and menstrual hygiene constraints. Marginalized communities, particularly Dalit settlements, are frequently excluded from infrastructure improvements, reproducing historical inequities. In essence, India's sanitation challenge transcends infrastructure and is deeply interwoven with behavioral, technological, and socio-cultural complexities. Addressing it requires an integrated approach that combines technological innovation, robust governance, and social inclusion, thereby ensuring that sanitation serves as a catalyst for both human dignity and sustainable development. Slide 10. Sanitation innovations, beyond traditional approaches. Access to safe sanitation remains a cornerstone of public health, dignity, and sustainable development. While conventional sanitation infrastructure, such as pit latrines, septic tanks, and centralized sewerage systems, has historically dominated planning, the scale and complexity of contemporary challenges necessitate innovations that transcend these traditional approaches. Emerging solutions are increasingly oriented toward sustainability, circular economy principles, and inclusive service delivery. One of the most significant innovations is the integration of decentralized sanitation systems, which provide scalable and context-specific alternatives to costly centralized networks. Technologies such as biodigesters and modular treatment units allow for the safe treatment of waste at source, reducing dependence on extensive infrastructure and minimizing leakages that often contaminate groundwater. These decentralized models are particularly suited for peri-urban and rural areas where resource constraints make conventional sewerage unviable. Equally transformative is the application of resource recovery and reuse frameworks. Human waste is increasingly being reconceptualized as a source of energy, nutrients, and water. Innovations in fecal sludge management and waste-to-energy conversion, through biogas production and nutrient recovery, offer dual benefits: improved sanitation and contributions to renewable energy and agriculture. Such approaches also align with circular economy objectives, shifting sanitation from a cost-intensive public service to a value-generating system. Moreover, digital technologies are reshaping monitoring and service delivery. Smart sensors, GIS mapping, and mobile applications facilitate real-time tracking of sanitation facilities, efficient fecal sludge collection, and citizen engagement. These digital platforms enhance accountability, optimize operations, and enable more inclusive governance. Finally, innovative financing models, including blended finance and public-private partnerships, are critical in scaling up these technologies. By attracting investment into sanitation as both a social and economic priority, these models accelerate progress toward universal coverage. Slide 11. Challenges to clean water access in India. Ensuring equitable access to clean water remains one of the most formidable developmental challenges confronting India. The country's water crisis is shaped by interlinked issues of scarcity, pollution, governance inefficiencies, and infrastructural deficits, each compounding the complexity of achieving Sustainable Development Goal 6. Water scarcity constitutes a central challenge, with 54% of India's population exposed to high or extremely high levels of water stress. The relentless extraction of groundwater has precipitated alarming declines in aquifer levels, while climate change continues to destabilize monsoonal rainfall patterns, exacerbating seasonal imbalances and threatening agricultural sustainability. This scarcity not only jeopardizes livelihoods but also amplifies inequities in access, particularly among marginalized communities. Pollution further undermines the quality of water resources, with nearly 70% of surface water sources rendered unsafe for human consumption. Industrial effluents, unregulated agricultural runoff laden with fertilizer and pesticide, and untreated domestic sewage collectively pollute rivers and lakes. Such contamination not only reduces the availability of potable water but also poses significant public health risks, contributing to the spread of waterborne diseases. Governance issues remain another impediment. Fragmented institutional structures, lack of coordination among agencies, and limited technical capacity have hampered the development and enforcement of integrated water resource management. The absence of coherent regulatory mechanisms and insufficient accountability perpetuate inefficiencies in planning and implementation. Finally, infrastructure gaps present a critical bottleneck. Addressing India's clean water needs demands an estimated investment of $291 billion by 2030, particularly in expanding water treatment facilities and strengthening distribution networks. Without such investments, rural and peri-urban regions will continue to face disproportionate hardships in accessing safe water. In sum, India's clean water challenge is multifaceted, requiring holistic interventions that simultaneously address ecological sustainability, technological innovation, institutional reforms, and equitable infrastructure expansion. Without urgent and coordinated action, the goal of universal access to clean and safe water will remain elusive. Slide 12. Innovative solutions. Water conservation technologies. Water scarcity and growing demand necessitate a paradigm shift in the way societies manage and utilize water resources. Conventional practices, though foundational, are insufficient in addressing the escalating challenges posed by climate variability, population growth, and unsustainable consumption. Innovative technologies are therefore emerging as pivotal tools in advancing water conservation, optimizing usage, and ensuring resilience in both urban and rural contexts. Micro-irrigation systems, including drip and sprinkler irrigation, exemplify the transition toward efficiency in agriculture, the sector that consumes nearly 80% of India's freshwater. These technologies reduce water usage by 30 to 70% while simultaneously enhancing crop yields by up to 90%. Programs such as India's Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana are expanding adoption, aiming to cover millions of hectares and reduce pressure on overexploited groundwater reserves. In urban areas, water recycling and reuse play a transformative role. Treated wastewater for non-potable applications can lower freshwater demand by up to 40%. Singapore's Any Water system illustrates global best practice, meeting a substantial share of national water needs through advanced treatment technologies, a model adaptable to Indian cities struggling with water scarcity. Rainwater harvesting represents another cost-effective and sustainable intervention. In suitable climates, household-level collection systems can supply up to 50% of domestic needs. Tamil Nadu's mandatory rainwater harvesting policy demonstrates tangible success, with Chennai recording groundwater level increases of 4 to 6 meters since its implementation. Finally, smart metering and digital monitoring are revolutionizing distribution efficiency. By detecting leaks and optimizing consumption patterns, these systems reduce water losses by 15 to 30%. In Delhi's pilot initiatives, non-revenue water losses fell significantly from 45% to 25% in targeted zones. Collectively, these innovations reflect a shift toward technologically driven, decentralized, and participatory models of water governance. Their success, however, depends on robust policy support, financing mechanisms, and community engagement. Harnessing these solutions at scale will be crucial for achieving sustainable water security in the decades ahead. Slide 13. Community-led water and sanitation success stories. Community-driven initiatives have emerged as powerful catalysts in advancing equitable access to water and sanitation services in India. They not only enhance infrastructure functionality but also instill social ownership and accountability, thereby ensuring sustainability. In Gujarat, the establishment of women-led water committees underscores the transformative role of gender-inclusive governance in water management. Women's self-help groups have assumed responsibility for fee collection, infrastructure maintenance, and the enforcement of conservation measures. The outcomes are noteworthy. Villages governed by such committees demonstrate 87% functionality of water systems, markedly higher than the 56% observed in traditionally managed communities. This success reflects how empowerment of women fosters both efficiency and inclusivity in resource governance. Odisha provides another significant model through its community-led total sanitation (CLTS) approach. Unlike subsidy-driven programs, CLTS focuses on behavioral transformation, utilizing tools such as participatory mapping, triggering exercises that highlight contamination pathways, and peer pressure. The collective action generated has resulted in over 3,000 villages achieving open defecation-free (ODF) status without external financial aid. This shift exemplifies how mobilized communities, motivated by awareness and dignity, can drive sustainable sanitation outcomes. Kerala's pioneering school wash, water, sanitation, and hygiene programs highlight the intergenerational potential of community participation. By designating students as wash ministers, schools cultivate leadership, responsibility, and peer-based monitoring. The model has reduced absenteeism by 21% and nurtured a culture of sanitation consciousness that extends beyond the school into households and communities. This integration of education with service delivery demonstrates how youth engagement can anchor long-term behavioral change. Together, these examples illustrate that community-led models transcend the limitations of top-down interventions. They strengthen social cohesion, generate localized solutions, and embed sustainability within cultural and social frameworks. By leveraging collective agency, they represent a vital pathway toward achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 6, SDG 6, of universal access to clean water and sanitation. Slide 14. Financing the water and sanitation gap. Financing water and sanitation infrastructure remains one of the most formidable barriers to achieving Sustainable Development Goal 6, SDG 6, which envisions universal access to safe water and adequate sanitation by 2030. The global investment requirement is estimated at $114 billion annually, nearly triple the current financial commitments, while India alone faces an investment demand of approximately $291 billion. Alarmingly, government allocations cover only about 30% of this need, leaving a substantial funding deficit that threatens to derail progress in both urban and rural contexts. Bridging this gap requires the adoption of innovative financing models that transcend traditional public expenditure. Blended finance, wherein public funds the risk and crowd in private capital, has shown considerable potential. Instruments such as water bonds, results-based financing, and microfinance for household connections represent scalable pathways to mobilize diverse streams of capital. Maharashtra's successful issuance of municipal water bonds, which raised $43 million for infrastructure development, illustrates the capacity of subnational entities to access capital markets for water security investments. Equally critical are sustainable pricing strategies that balance equity with cost recovery. Tiered tariff structures can promote affordability for vulnerable populations while ensuring that higher consuming households and commercial users cross-subsidize basic access. Delhi's water policy, which provides a free basic allowance while imposing progressive charges on higher consumption, exemplifies how subsidies can be targeted to maximize social equity without undermining financial sustainability. Such pricing frameworks encourage conservation while generating revenue for reinvestment. Ultimately, closing the financing gap demands a multi-pronged approach that combines public expenditure, private investment, and innovative financial instruments with socially responsive tariff models. Without such systemic interventions, the promise of SDG 6 risks remaining aspirational rather than achievable, particularly in countries like India where the fiscal burden is acute and water demand is rapidly intensifying. Slide 15. The path forward. Accelerating progress on SDG 6. Achieving Sustainable Development Goal 6, SDG 6, ensuring universal access to clean water and sanitation by 2030, requires a paradigm shift from fragmented approaches toward integrated, inclusive, and evidence-based strategies. The pathway forward must be anchored in 5 interdependent pillars: partnerships and integration, systems strengthening, community empowerment, data-driven decision-making, and universal access. First, partnerships and integration are essential to overcome policy silos. Cross-sectoral collaboration across water, energy, food, health, and climate domains ensures coherent strategies that acknowledge systemic interdependencies. Aligning national policies with global commitments creates enabling environments for sustainable implementation. Second, systems strengthening demands institutional reforms and enhanced governance capacities. Transparent regulations, efficient service delivery mechanisms, and equitable financing structures are critical to bridge gaps between policy intent and on-ground outcomes. Third, community empowerment remains indispensable. Local ownership, inclusive participation, and gender-responsive approaches foster long-term sustainability. Empowering marginalized groups, particularly women and youth, not only democratizes resource management but also ensures resilience against climate-induced vulnerabilities. Fourth, data-driven decision-making enhances accountability and adaptability. Advances in digital monitoring, geospatial analysis, and real-time reporting enable policymakers to track progress, identify disparities, and recalibrate interventions. Evidence-based governance thereby fosters efficiency and transparency in resource allocation. Finally, the vision of universal access achieved necessitates substantial political commitment, financial investment, and collective action. Blending innovative financing with global solidarity can accelerate delivery while ensuring equity. This brings end to our presentation. As we move forward, we shall begin exploring Sustainable Development Goals 7, Global Assessment for Affordable and Clean Energy. We encourage you to stay connected with our channel for the upcoming session, and to share this content with fellow professionals who share their passion for sustainable development with our channel. Until then, I wish you all about their professional journey filled with excitement, challenges and sustainable prosperity.